Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Akanta Mantalakaram, Yaptam Yena Characharam, Tatpadam Darishram Yena, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sadasiva Shamarambam, Shankaracharya Madhyamam, Asmadacharya Paryandam, Vande Guru Parampara. Namaskaram. So we are learning about the lives of the great sages. So generally, any abstract, absolute matter is quite difficult to comprehend. We normally don't really engage very well when we talk about truth, absolute truth, abstract concepts that leads to the truth. That's why it is very difficult to find a lot of interest in Vedanta, generally. So knowing this, what our seers and sages have done is the Vedanta Saram becomes part of all the Purana Idihasas. Because the other spectrum of absolute, abstract, the eternal, simple truth. I say simple because truth cannot be many. The opposite of that is a fiction, because fiction is mithyatvam. Fiction can be anything. But if you really analyze ourselves, we all like fictions, right? We like to read stories. I mean, if you go to the movie theater and if you see a movie which a virtuous person living a life every day, routinely, no, you won't stay. The movie will be a flop because we need excitement, change, unexpected things happening, wonder, amazements, more imagination. Because mind is mithyatvam, mind enjoys this variety. So the transition from the fiction to the truth is a necessary process. The process happens with what you call a fact. Because fiction is completely enjoyable, you can reject it because it's fiction. Truth is boring, difficult to comprehend. But where we actually take a stand is what we consider as a fact for ourselves. So the fact is actually stranger than the fiction. You know, there's a saying, fact is stranger to fiction. Whatever you can imagine, but when it happens in somebody's life, knowing that fact makes us wonder. So if you're not very careful, we will reject it because somehow it is not factored in your mind as a rational thinking. But think about it. Every invention, every creation, every consequence, every effect is somebody's imagination. Nothing would have been invented, nothing would have been arrived without an imagination. Therefore, this creation, if you call it a creation, therefore it has to be imagined by somebody. So there's no difference between fiction, fact, and truth, depending on in what position we are accepting it. I say this because of this. The reason for this is when we start learning about the great jnanis, especially those who surpassing all the human effort, amanushya shakti they have, unbelievable shakti, prabalyam, then we are in the risk of discarding them as imagination, fiction. So we should not do that. Because the Mahatma we are going to gracefully worship today in our satsang is one such great being. It's called Sadasiva Brahmendra. Ajnana Timira Ravaye Prajnana Bodhi Purna Chantraya, Pranataka Vibhana Suchiye, Pranatim Kurmaha Sadasivendraya. This shloka is coming from Sadasivendra's Stava. This is about a Mahan Jiva Samadhi that you see. This Mahatma, Parabrahma, is supreme because, you have in India, there are a lot of spiritual schools, matas, and Shankara's established number of mats where there are great Mahatmas or Mahaniyas are teaching us the path. But they also have some rules, like if you take a Sringeri, today we have the Bharatiya Theatre, the Shekhar Bharati Swami. So they all have a tradition, and normally they do not go and pay obedience to other gurus, not because of any such ill feelings, but it is the tradition. The Parabrahmam, Shankara's Paryantam they worship. But it so happened in the years 1890 to 1910 sometime. The 33rd Acharya of Sringeri, Sachidananda Shivabhinava Narasimha Bharati Swami. So he was traveling, Digvijayam he is taking. He was being carried in a palanquin, and he was going across in the banks of Kaveri in Tamil Nadu. At some place, the devotees who were carrying him could not walk. He was becoming unusually heavy and a bit disoriented, not able to move. So he asked them to stop it and gets down and say, what's happening? And they say, look, somehow we could not walk. Then he realizes, he's a Egagram, he got a buddhi. So he's a Mahatma himself. A magnetic force like that, something is pulling him towards a bush. So he walks around and he finds a little place, and then there is a Samadhi, Jiva Samadhi. And he goes there and sits there for 3 days. So disciples are waiting out there, and they could hear a conversation going on in Sanskrit, in Telugu, in Tamil. But after 3 days, he comes out and he makes 2 prarthanas, Sadasiva Pancharatnam, Sadasiva Sthamam. So he has actually seen the Parabrahmam, Sadasiva Brahmendra Swami, who was a Jiva Samadhi there. And then he writes his glory, his vibhuti in 40-odd verses. And this is something which he has conversed with him. And that corroborates with many of the historical facts that they found about his life. In fact, he was the one who drew the picture of how he saw Sadashiva as Avaduta. Avaduta is one who completely discarded everything. And Bhagavan says in Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, in Bhagavatam, in fact, in the Uddhava Gita, the 11th chapter, the Uddhava Gita, the first part is called Avaduta Gita. Bhagavan is, and there are a number of Gitas that Bhagavan imparts. The Avaduta Gita, it is said how the Advaita Anuphuti, once is dawned on him, on a person, how they discard everything, Pikambaras. So such is this great Mahatma. Even today, even Kanchi Acharyas worship them. It's become a tradition now in Sringeri. Every Acharyas come and worship the Sadasiva Brahmendra Samadhi. It is in a place called Nerur. It is some 12 kilometers from Karur in the Trichy-Karur route. It's a beautiful place, and I've been a few times, and it's a wonderful place to go. Very, very pious and quiet place. So we are going to take some glimpse. I say it very, with a lot of preparation and fear and it's very difficult for ordinary people like me or anybody to talk about such a wonderful Parabrahman's life. It's like a little sparrow going to the ocean and, with his beak, trying to pick up the water and give it to others. It's impossible. It's impossible to do. But nevertheless, we took this foolish courage to understand it. So, this is, he's forever. Is one avatar where he shows what a jnani is, what the sannyasi is, what a yogi is, what a bhakta is, what a poet is, what a good human being is. So he's everything, in Patanjali's, he has excelled Patanjali's Samadhi Tattva. In fact, Yoga Sudhagara, which we picked up some of those pointers from him when we learned about Patanjali Yoga Sutra. So he's a complete yogi. When we study the Bhuti Yogam in Patanjali Yogam, and you see a lot of siddhis there, and if there's a proof for anybody who attained the siddhi, this is Sadasiva Brahmendra. See, jnani is, we generally say jnani is one who has jnana, It etymologically may be correct, but it is not absolutely correct, because if jnani has jnanam, the jnanam is an object, isn't it? In Vedanta, object is perishable. So jnani is jnana swarupa. The he or she becomes it. Navumsakalinga. Brahman. It's called Sadasiva Brahmendra. The suffix Indra in Tamil is a very respected reverence. But he was even called Sadasiva Brahman. Brahma means Brahman. Parabrahman, beyond everything. Like Sugar Brahman. The only 2 or 3 you can say, Sugar Brahman, Jagatapara. In the Kali Yuga, in the recent past, just 300, 400 years, is Sadasiva Brahman. So when such Mahatma's life is revealed, no, we don't go there with way to analyze and learn. Analysis, paralysis is different. That we cannot do, because these Mahatmas leave a legend which is stranger than fiction. It's very difficult. So with our rational mind, if you go and study the life and start questioning it, you go nowhere. But then how do we listen to that conversation? How do we listen? How do we read? How do we understand the life? When someone asked Bhagavan Ramana, Bhagavan, how am I? How we are to see you? Are you avatar? Who are you? They say, you are Lord Subramanya, you are Arunachala. Who are you? As usual, Bhagavan never answers for a long time, and then on some occasion he reveals that which is spurti, that which is spandana, that which is the effulgence in you, in everything, every being. That is Ramana. That is Ramana. That is Atma. See, he would have said Shivogam, like Shankara says Shivogam, I am eternal being. But he is giving an answer to the doubt, because the all-pervasive one is same as what is indwelling in us. But he says that which is in you is Ramana. That which is in you is Jnanam. Now we see that Jnani is Jnana Swarupam or Jnanam itself. Therefore, when you are reading, listening, hearing such a Mahatma's life, our bhavam should be that we are trying to understand ourselves. That is the Atma bhavam we must have. Otherwise, all this life history will be a parable, a miracle of inspiring for a few times and be discarded. This is to really see that by listening to this, I am learning about myself. For the end of the day, Again, what Bhagavan Ramana says, the toll gate that you, in whatever path you take, redemption, emancipation, freedom, moksha comes to this gate. And the gate, the path is just one question, one answer. Question is, who am I? If you know the answer of it, the gate opens. Only to come to that question, to answer it, all this yajnas, Vedas, yogas, parayanas. That's why. So we approach with that reverence. Doesn't matter the facts are not very clear. Doesn't matter there are questions. But in this listening, in this Shravanam, if you get some shanti, some way to open your heart, to bring that Sadashivam from us, then I think we have achieved something there. Okay. Now we come down to this world. You know, when things are going bad, the avatars come and they do major changes, you know. So when you take straight avatars, like we know the Shavataras, Rama comes in, Krishna comes in. But you see how they struggle. What do they struggle for? They come, especially Rama avatar, take it. Rama struggles like any human being, even more than a normal human being. He does not show any of his miracles. Sometimes miracle appears out of their power, but they don't intend to use any miracles. Because what is their role? Their role is to show the human being how the human beings have to live a righteous life. So therefore they are, in a way, I heard somebody was saying about, is Rama a god? You know, there are a lot of antagonists say that. Well, okay, Rama doesn't need to be a god. This is a good progress because many years back, they didn't even accept Ramayana as a history. Even though it's itihasa, they said it's a myth. Now they have moved and they are now saying, oh, Rama is just a man. I'd say, hooray. Because it is great that Rama was there. Rama existed. But then you look at him as a man, how he lived, Purushottam, Maryada Purushottam. But when you come to the Mahaniyas, Mahans, Atmajnanis, who are far above all this, because they are not coming to do a particular job. It's just a Parabrahman that evolves and that shows the light to create Shanti. So when it happens, you need an instrument for it. Like, you know, when Parachara was there in many yugas back, Vedas were not splitted. They were all one scriptures. And it is so big, infinite, very difficult to read. As days progressed, our ability to grasp things were deteriorating. Then a satsang was formed and they said, Sage Parashara, please tell us what we can do. How are you going to dwell deeper into this Vedashara? Then he did penance and Lord Vishnu himself, Vishnu Rupaya, Vyasaya, Vishnu Rupaya. Vyasa came as a son. And then he did a great thing of taking out the Vedas into Rik, Yajus, and Sama. Adarpana Veda is basically a rasam of all these Vedas. So he did all that. So like that, you know, in every, then Shankara came and took it out the book, Buddhism. There was a time where this, even the rituals that what the prescribed the Rasta have to do, they're not doing it. There is no time. If you do all this, Trikala Sandhya Vandanas and all these pujas and Nitya Karma, all this, everything goes as a mechanical way. And there was a time, it is in the, from 1570, 1580 to 1800, that time frame. In the south of India, like in north and south of India, along the banks of Kaveri, great Mahans came in. In particularly, there are three. One is called Sridhara Ayyavai. His Purvashram was Venkateshwar. It's a very ministerial family. And he is seen as a Lord Shiva's incarnation himself, Advaiti. But Shiva Puja he does. And there was Bodhendra Saraswati, one of the pontiff of Kanchimat, the same contemporary. His Purvashram name was Purushottam. Very interesting story also there. That was the time Sadashiva was also there, the contemporary of them. Bodhendra, Ayarwal, Sridhar Ayarwal, they have created what's called Ekanama Bhajan. So if you cannot really dwell deeper into the Veda Shastrams all the time, use Ramanama, Shivanama, to the Nama. But even then, the Nama was boring, isn't it? Because the same Nama, you repeat it, you say a few times and nobody is watching you, just walk away because it's boring. Because my mind needs it. So it was also not gaining momentum in later years. There's another great Mahan called Venkatramana, he's later called Marudana Luswanigal. He comes and he takes all those Mahans, Kirtanas, and say, look, why should I sit in a place and do japa? I go out and sing Nama Sangeetam, Sampradaya. This is the most important thing because it really propagated spiritual progress in South India. Sampradaya Bhajan started. But many of you attended the Nama Sangeetam that we do. And we bring in great Mahans like Udayalur, Dr. Kalyanram Bhagavatar came there. Radha Kalyana Utsavam we do. In fact, in the 2 years back when we compiled the book, we compiled the book of these great Mahans into a little biography of it. See, this is the transformation. See, the turning point. They will come and they create a new turning point. The turning points are inevitable. So therefore, if you look at the history, there is going to be future turning point. There will be some Mahans will come. They'll give us different directions. We need to adopt and go. So this was that time frame. Because, Sadasiva Brahmendra's life is, very difficult to find out the timing. The scholars come to the conclusion he lived 200 years of life because he's got evidence of it from 1586 onwards, 1633, 1738, 1792. It goes like 1763. So let's see what is being decided by the scholars as the definitive point. So in 1673, in a place called Kumbakonam in South India, there are a lot of scholars and people migrate from Andhra Pradesh to Tamil Nadu. It's called Panchadravidam. India was actually 2 states, North 5 and South 5, Panchadravidam, Panchakrona. So it was. So there's one family and the king of Tanjavur called I've been very generous, offering grants, and people migrated. The Kumbakonam, there was a very pious Brahmin called Moksha Somasundara Avadani. His wife is Parvati Amma. Parvati Amma as a Rama Bhakta. She has done a Kotinama Japam, Rama Japam. Somasundara Avadani is a great scholar. Is a Siva Puja is very important for him. So in the family is full of, devoted, and they didn't bother about lineage, and they just lived happily in Shivanama, Ramanama. When he was 40 years of age, Parvati Ammal has got a desire in Ichha Shakti. See, desire doesn't come just because you want to decide something. Desire comes from vritti. So when the grace is there, the vritti comes in that you must have a child. Then they say, okay, let's pray to God. So they go to Rameswaram, they pray. Then on one fine day, they got a baby, boy. They call him Siva Rama Krishna. Siva Rama Krishna. God's grace, and the child is beautiful, very playful, but introverted, very introverted. Not very keen on many things, but except learning things and naturally a very beautiful voice and singing voice. So what happened was he, at They do the Upanayanam for him and all that. And then they need to find a teacher. They find a village called Thirivisai Nallur. Even today, it's a most famous place where it is, satsang is always there. Veda Sadas happens. All the great scholars are there. So they move to that place. There, he takes a lesson from a guru called Ramabhakta Dikshit. This Ramabhakta Dikshit is a disciple of Nilakanta Dikshit. This Nilakanta Dikshit is a disciple of Appaya Dikshit, not disciple, grandson of Appaya Dikshit. Appaya Dikshit is what Brahmacharya calls is Shivavatar. No, he's such a great scholar. So it's a very profound lineage. This Ramabhadra Dikshit is a guru of Sridhar Ayyava. So there's evidence for it. Therefore, you can see Shivaramakrishnan is a contemporary of Ramakrishna Ayyava. So he says under the Ramabhadras, he's learning many things he learns. And he's had a pandityam to write. He writes Brahmasutra Bhashyams, he writes everything for them. For Shankara's Bhashyam, he writes everything. For Patanjali Yoga Sudram, he writes Yoga Sudhakaram, Navamani Mala. He sings Kirtanas. There are so many Kirtanas. Later he's going to be called Sadasiva Brahmendra, but at the time called Shiva Ramakrishna. So he was 17 years of age, but he's always introverted. So what the parents think, it's the time to get married. Marriage will sort him out. So they find a very pious girl. In those days, they have an engagement ceremony when the child is very young. It's not a Balya Vivagam, but they do a betrothal with them. The 7-year-old girl, Meenakshi, has been married to him. Then he comes back and studies with the teacher. And when the young girl attains puberty and maturity, when there's a function, celebration, so parents call him to come home. He takes Guru's permission and he goes there to see the mother. He's hungry. He says, "Mom, give me food." So on the day the visitors are coming, the bride is going to come, the parents are going to come. So obviously the feast is being prepared. And so mother says, Shivarama, it's not ready yet. You don't have to wait too long, but don't step in, stay there. He was about to get to the kitchen. He says, you don't have to wait for too long. Don't step in, stay there. See, the turning points comes in few words. It's like, it's like a dry out leaf, leaf in the forest, a little bit of spark from sunshine, a glitter from the piece of glass will set the fire on it. He thinks, I am a brahmachari. The moment I want to come to the Grihasthashram, I'm hungry, I can't get food. You see, I have to wait. So Grihasthashram is going to be trouble for me. He thinks about it. Mother says, don't step in, stay there. Mata, Pita, Guru, their mother is the first Guru. Mother says, don't step in. So he took it as, don't step into the family life. Stand there. Stand where you are. So he take it as a diksha. He escapes. Nobody knows where he's gone. He's got a nomadic life. Just goes around, prays to Shiva. He doesn't know how to pray. He doesn't have anything, any dravyam to pay. So he sings a Manasa Puja. It's a great verses about how to do the puja to Shiva in the mind. All these 16, 24 different dravyams comes from the senses from the body. He sings around. But he's longing for change from the life from what he was. So he goes to his Ramabhadra Dikshit Guru and asks for him. And he says, right, you have to go and meet in Thiruvankadu the Guru called Paramashivendra Saraswati Swami. So he's a great, there's a legend about he is being the 57th pontiff for Kanchi Kamakoti Peeth at the time. But, and he's a, Paramatma is a profound Mahaniya. So So Shiva Ramakrishna goes there and he looks at him and look at the cherish of him, and he really likes him, and then takes him into his compassionate abode, learns from him, and one day is giving him sannyasa ashram with the name of Sadasiva. Sadasiva means ever auspicious, ever pious. So he's there and he's learning things and built a lot of granthas, Advaita Taravali, so many things. Atmanusantana, it's a beautiful one. The Guru writes Vedanta Nama Ratna Sahasram. See, we have a Lalita Sahasranamam, Vishnu Sahasranamam, Shivan Sahasranamam. What the Sri Paramesha Shivananda Saraswati did was, he took all the Upanishad and picked up the names for the Parabrahma, Namateyam, Parabrahma. But he brings beautiful names, thousands of names. From there, he takes 200 of them and create Atmanusandam. So he writes so many books, but that knowledge, profound knowledge in him is burning. So he doesn't let anybody go with the wrong notion of ideas. So he debates, challenges anybody. Anybody comes to the Guru or anybody goes to the king, have to confront Sadashiva. And he will challenge them and then put them to the pieces. So this becomes a problem for many people. Some even go to complain to the Guru and look, whatever the little we know, we preach and then we get our livelihood. The Sadashiva comes and argues and everything goes away. So Guru was watching it, and one day during this class, and Sadashiva asking a question, and Guru says, after answering him, tells him in Tamil, won't you know how to stop? Won't you stop? Won't your mouth stop? Or won't your mouth shut? Sadashiva, unvai adakyada. Something like that. He says, to the effect. In a compassion. But who is he? I mean, he is waiting to be turning into Parabrahma, his own Swarupam. He's waiting for another Diksha. Now the Guru says, why adikyada? That means he's telling me now, enough is enough. I don't talk anymore. So he becomes a silent. He never talked after that. Become a moni. And then he leaves. He leaves the ashram. He wanders. The Guru doesn't know where he's gone. But he has done so much of sadhanas. Many siddhis coming out of it. Once I think he was leaning on a haystack, and people are thought that he's a thief. The one farmer comes there with a stick to beat him up. The moment he raises his hand, he was frozen. So the legend goes. Frozen not in a kind of icily frozen, but he's frozen in the kind of a tranquil bliss, looking at Sadasiva, let's call him Sadasiva Brahmendra now. Sadasiva Brahma is looking at him, and he's frozen. So the landlord comes and sees it, and as soon as the landlord comes, Swami gets up and walks away. This farmer comes to the realization, and this landlord, what is happening? He realizes something is going on. This is the Mahan, and he sees him just disappears from this place. So he just wanders around in the banks of Kaveri. Whatever people gives, he will eat, but don't talk to anybody. So one place called Mahadanapuram. You know the Mahadanapuram, Sandhanam, all the great singers. It's a beautiful village along the Kaveri River. There he is there, and he has got a priyam to the young children. Young children are very pure in the heart. So children comes and play with him. And there was a time in Madurai town, there was a great celebration, Shivochavam. Everybody is going to Madurai. Some of the children are complaining that their parents have not taken them to Madurai to see all these festivities. And then he signs them to climb on his back and close their eyes, and they close their eyes, and everybody is in the town of Madurai. They see all these festivities, and he gets them all the sweets. And then after a few minutes, close their eyes, they come back to that. The children are really, really happy. They go and tell the parents, they went to Madurai and they didn't believe it. But when they narrate this situation, what they saw, they realize they are really a Mahan. They come and try to look for him, and he's gone. Like this, there's another occasion where he was lying down, and again, the Kaveri River, if you go, this side is all the paddy field, very green, lush greens. River goes there, and in the banks, they do all this kind of harvesting and putting all this. And he was lying down, sleeping, and they, not knowing him, they start putting the haystacks, and it becomes a big pile. And a few days he was there. And one day when they removed it, they saw this person lying in there. So the news goes out, and this is the time the gurus are looking for him. He's not there at all. In fact, Sridhara Ayarwal, who knows him, he comes there and sees him. And in fact, he requests him to, don't be silent, please sing. Then there is a story that after that he sings when he's alone, or he writes on the sand, but never talks. He disappears. He walks away. They all come back to, in fact, what happens after this, he goes another interesting, so all the turning points happen in his life. Another turning point is when he was lying down on the bank of the river with the 2 bricks on his head as a pillow. And the peasant women who are going to the river to fetch water, they see this sage. In our culture, sages are very respected. At least they're not normal people. They don't really abuse them. They look at him compassionately and tell them, no, he was sleeping on the head, and the lady was saying, oh, why can't the Swami put the brick on his head and sleep? Then he put the bricks and sleeps. Well, coming back, one of the ladies says, oh, the Swami needs luxury. Then he realizes, so now I am still vacillating. My mind is vacillating. I don't need any belonging. So he completely becomes stark naked now, completely becomes avaduta. Nothing affects him anymore. He's just walking everywhere. So the news goes to that guru. The guru says, Guru. In fact, when Sringeri Acharya, when he writes, he says, Unmattavat sanchara diga sishyas tavedi lokasya vachamsi shruna kit yatru vachasya guru puroho unmattata menaki datto shiti. When the Sringeri Acharya says, oh, when your guru heard that you are wandering like a madman, what the guru said, how wonderful. Why am I not able to get that state of affairs? So it is how the avadutas, the jnanis, for them there's nothing, even the body itself is a clad. So he goes on like this. Once he was sitting in the riverbed. It's a rainy season. The water started coming, and suddenly, in Kaveri, if you see it, the water comes very fast. The water will come initially. Within 3 hours, 4 hours, you can see the flood coming through. So the water came in, flooded, and he rolled into this, and then he got buried into this river. Nobody knows what happened to him. 3 months passed, and the river has been almost dried down. People try to take the sand, and somebody comes and use the axe to take out the sand. At one particular blow, it hit something, and then they can see the blood coming out. So they're very scared, and they gently open it up, and he's sitting there underneath, asampragnana samadhi for him. And then he wakes up and get all this thing and walks away. So he's become very, very famous. Everybody revere him. They call him Nirvana Swami or Swami. So some of those Vedic scholars are really not very happy about this because he's like this. They even question him. All this is not the right thing to do. And what he does was once in Kaveri River, somebody, a dhobi was washing, a washerman was washing. And he asked him to open his tongue and then touches it and walks away. And then he started reciting Veda mantras. Like this, his miracles are so many of them. One example, the Kanchi Paramacharya's brother, Purvashva brother, Shivachar, has written about it. And I'm very lucky. I mean, just recently, Natarajan Natuji has gave me a book that he has given. So I was just browsing it last night. It's very interesting. The page came to me where he was talking about other siddhis of Sadasiva Brahmendra, where he is Sarvajna. He's there everywhere. Now, an Italian was there in India as part of the East Indian Company, and he goes in a hearse, and when he goes in a hearse, he's a very pious man. He goes to church and all that. But he sees a beggar-like person sitting there on a street. He looks at him very intently, and then he goes a few miles away. In another turning, he saw the same person sitting there. It's strange. He goes somewhere else, same person sitting there. So he got really scared. I mean, what's happening? And at one place, he stops this horse and gets down, dismounts, and then goes to him. And then it was Sadasiva Brahman. The Brahman gets up and looks at him very compassionately, walks and disappears. But he's like that, but he goes to Lord. He does what's called a Jalastambha. Jalastambha means he can be there within the water, just buried himself and stay there. And he'll be there listening to the wonderful musics of Bodhendra Saraswati, to Sridhar Ayyavar. In fact, they say his presence created so much of vibration. So this great acharyas started writing, singing, Namasankirtanam more and more and more. Once he was in Kutralam. Kutralam is down south. Kutralam is there. See what's the time. So there was a Englishman goes for the summer break, and when he sees there on the top of the hill, there's a stark naked. There is a figure there. He thought, guys used to think they are savages in India. So he thought this is a tribe sitting there. He tried to intimidate me. So he tried to take his 303 rifle. He wanted to aim at him and shoot at him. And when he looked at through this, aiming at it, the figure becomes a tiger, like a roaring tiger. And then he takes out, and you can see the figure. So this is again, I think he symbolizes. So like that, he was walking wherever he goes. He sings, in sand. So when it comes to Pudukkottai is another great place where he actually, in a place called Trikokarnam Shiva temple, he sits there and practices it. The king of Pudukkottai really, really likes to see him. So he searches for him. And in Thiruvalankulam, I think there's a place called, there he finds Sadasiva Brahmendra. He goes and worships him. Now, out of compassion, Sadasiva Brahmendra writes in the sand Dakshinamurti mantra as Upadesam to the king. Vijay Raghunatha Tondaiman, the king. So the king took that sand as a grace of God. Even today, there's a casket in the palace, in Pudukkottai palace. The sand is there. It is worshipped. I think Sadasiva Brahmendra has identified a escort for this virtuosity. So basically, the later Everything is done by the king's lineage. In fact, Sadasiva Brahmendra tells him in sign language to appoint Gopalakrishna Shastri, one contemporary who is his classmate with in previous Nellore, to be a minister for him. The minister joined the Kota kingdom and goes on like that. It's a great story. So that's where there is also a woodcutter, who cut wood and then take to home, and a few of them, they saw this naked Swami and say, put one thing on his head, ask him to carry, and he carries around. And at the house, when everybody dismount and he puts it down, as soon as he puts it down, all the dry wood started burning. Again, a Siddhi, and they all worship him, and then he blesses them, and there is a lot more of dry wood stock for them, and he goes on. I think the greatest miracle of that, one of the greatest miracles of him, very well known, is that when you're passing through a harem of the Muslim region, a kingdom, Nawab was ruling the region, and he was passing through. When he's passing through, it's a naked fakir goes this way, and he gets very offended. He calls him to stop, and he doesn't stop. He just walks. And then he asks somebody to go and chop his hand. So the soldiers go there and chop his hand. The hand falls down, and he just keeps walking. So the Nawab gets very worried, and he takes his hand in a silver cloth and runs to him. Swami, and then he prays, beg your pardon, I made a big mistake. Please forgive me. He looks at him in sign, asks him, what happened? Tells him, I cut your hand. So he puts it on his shoulders, and hand gets fixed as if it is not cut. He walks away. So like that, the miracles of what he's doing, what he done. In fact, one of those Musliman asked him that he wants the Siddhi of Sadasiva Brahmendra should be in his place wherever he lives. So later he goes to Karachi, and we'll hear the story about how his Samadhi happened simultaneously in Karachi. Amazing. Also, also he does many things. Like, he is in Tanjore. There was a Shakti's Vigraham was there in a bush. Nobody really cared about it, and the Shakti wanted to bring out her energy to the masses. So Sadasiva Brahmendra bring it up, and today it's called Punnai Mariamman temple, and he does that one. In the Siruvachur Madurakaliamman temple, he installs the Sri Chakram. So like that, he does many things, singing many songs. All of you know many of those songs that he does it. One thing which really captivating his status was one of the kritis. It also says a slogan. Here he says, who I am. He says, Ananta Purna Bodhakam, Sachidananda Purna Bodhakam, Shivokam, Charvatma Sarogam, Parinirvana Nirguna Nilatma Hogam, Kirvana Varyana Dokam, Kama Garva Nirbhabarana Dhirata Hogam. Goes on. Shivokam, Niravaya Hogam, Ajogam. I am unborn. This one thing, explaining this would take you 3 hours. Mahimani Nikita Makitokam. Niravadi Sattva Kanokam. But all this is because of Dhira Parama Shivendra Shri Guru Bodhitokam. Shivendra Guru's grace. I am a realized soul. I am the Parabrahman. Everything is praying around me. Avabodham. So such a great soul. So he decides to give up the body. So once he decided that, he writes in the sand to her disciples to come to the place called Nerur. The Nerur is a place where near Karur, I told you. And he says, look, I am going to take a Jiva Samadhi. Jiva Samadhi means that you disembody when the body is there. You become Videha Mukti when your soul is still occupying this embodiment. He says, create a pit of this square, this particular dimension. Once they get in there, close it, and there will be a Vilva tree will come, and a Bana Lingam will come from somebody, bring it from Kashi, and put it in. And I stay here forever to bless you. So everybody was so shocked. I mean, how can we let him go? How can we live without him? So the day has come. The pit has been created. So he's going to get down. All these Dhupadipams are written down. Tulasis are there everywhere. All the Veda Panditas are there. All the peasants, all the normal beings like us are there. Because for him, he was beyond all creed. He taught two called Rekte Sahibu in Tanjore. Two Muslims who have been very devoted to spirituality. He was been blessed by him. And they were very famous Siddhas as well. So caste, creed, religion is not there. So there was a big crowd to see with their own eyes, somebody is going to take up Jiva Samadhi. They cry. So then, the time he looked compassionately and writes in the sand a poem, which is Sarvam Brahmamayam. Rere. Kim Vachaniyam, Kim Avachaniyam, Kim Rachaniyam, Kim Arachaniyam, Kim Pataniyam, Kim Apataniyam. Kim Vachaniyam. They all tell him, please tell us what to do. What is our life? How can we good? I said, hey. Rere means hey. Sarvam Brahmamayam. Everything is Brahmamayam. So what am I to say? Kim Vachaniyam. What can I say? Kim Avachaniyam. What cannot be said? So all that is spoken, all that is not spoken is Brahma. Kim Rachaniyam. Kim Rachaniyam. Whatever is being written, whatever to be written, whatever to be studied, what yet to be studied, whatever is being worshipped, what yet to be worshipped, Kim Bodhabhyam, Kima Bodhabhyam, whatever need to be taught, what is taught? Sarvatra, everything is Brahmamayam. For him, Sarvatra Sadahamsa Dhyana. He's called Paramahamsa. In his songs, if you see, Bajare Yadunagam, Manasa Sanjarare, anything, all the songs, if you look at it, it'll be a Paramahamsa. Paramahamsa is Mudra. Hamsa is Hamsa, Soham, who has conquered the life, conquered the life energy, conquered the pranayamas. Kattavyam Bomukti Nidhanam. So maybe this is a good time. I request Sri Sadasiva Brahmendra to sing this song. I mean, he is a beautiful singer. So please, can you?
Namaskar. Only thing is I am speaking in Sankarabhara Raham. Sarvam Brahmamayam Re Sarvam Brahmamayam Kim Vachaniyam Kim Avachaniyam Kim Vachaniyam Kim Avachaniyam Kim Rachaniyam Kim Rajaniyam Kim Rachaniyam Kim Rajaniyam sarvam brahmamayam. Re re sarvam brahmamayam. Kim pataniyam, kima pataniyam, kim pataniyam, kima pataniyam, kim bhajaniyam, kima bhajaniyam, kim bhajaniyam, kima bhajaniyam, sarvam brahmamayam. Re re sarvam brahmamayam. Kim bhatayam, 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 sarvam brahmamayam. Re re sarvam brahmamayam. Sarvatra sada amsajjano, sarvatra sada amsajjano, kartavyam mukti nidayano, kartavyam mukti nidayano, sarvatra sada amsajjano, kartavyam mukti nidayano, sarvam brahmamayam. Re re sarvam brahmamayam. With your permission, just short Navali. Deho naham jivo nagam pratyabhinna brahmaivaham. Deho nagam jivo nagam pratyabhinna brahmaivaham. Paramatmaham paripurnoham anandogam brahmaivaham. Paramatmaham paripurnoham anandogam brahmaivaham. Deho nagam jivo nagam. Sadasiva Brahmendra Swami Jai. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, sir. Beautiful and chanting. See, Bhagavan says, Yajnanam Jabayak Yosmi. So in all these yajnams, the most important thing is the Japa Yajnam. Japam is a Nama Japam is very lalitam and sulapam, very easy to do. And the Nama Japam becomes a Nama Sankirtanam, it is more lalitam, more sukham, more sukirtam. Especially, many of those great singers like just now we heard, and when you can sing, even hearing itself, sometimes Shravanam is great. I mean, if you can just listening to this music itself, it moves, it turns our heart. And especially when these kirtanas are not composed to a meter or structured. This is Upanishad, in my opinion, because this is Atmanubhavat is coming out of the Sadasiva Brahmendra. All such Mahaniyas, when they say something, Vyakarnam has to go and sit. What the Padartha Devadas do when they utter, when for anyone with Shraddha, Tapas, when they utter a word, write a sentence or write a poetry or anything, the Padartha Devatas come out and then sit in the words and letters and the gaps of the letters. Even the writer doesn't know what he's writing. He may write a particular Vachyartham, Lakshyartham, but it is a haven for immense knowledge. What happens is, when somebody else reads it, recites it, studies it, depending on their intensity of purpose, intensity of devotion, the Shraddha, the Padartha Devatas come out of those letters and the words and dance in front of them, giving them a very different meaning. That's only the reason we are able to give so many different meanings to same shlokas, same shastras, same poetry. Now, Tirukkural, if you take it, there are thousands of interpretations for each one. It's not that the plan of all the meaning, because the Brahma Jnanam is infinite. It opens up in so many ways. So this very simple verse, it looks like a simple verse, but the meaning it is full of pregnant. But sometimes you don't even need to know the meaning. This is the beauty of it, because sometimes meaning, unless we are matured enough to write on the meaning and the meaning complexities and take with Shraddha that if the meaning is not relevant to my understanding, then it is my Shraddha that is lagging, not the truth of it. Otherwise, meaning may confuse you, but singing itself is a great thing. So this Paramatmam is there in the Nerur, but it's everywhere. So whoever get a chance to visit South India, and this is a beautiful place to visit, very, very pious place. So maybe we all get that parivartana more and more. Om Ashadoma Sadgamaya. Amashoma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityurma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti.